Hello and welcome back to You and I for the Kenai. This is Aaron and I'm back with Koebryn today. And today we're recording another great recovery story with Caitie. Caitie, how's it going?
It's going great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
We're so excited. So, Caitie and I have a mutual friend that has actually been helping our whole podcast team with some marketing stuff. So I met with this friend and we had coffee together. We were hanging out, talking about marketing, and she kind of asked me like what we do, and I told her, oh, like this is what our podcast is about. You should go listen, blah blah blah. And she says, I have the perfect recovery story for you. And so then she hooked me and Caitie up via email, and 1 week later, and probably the fastest podcast we've ever scheduled ever. And I'm super excited.
Me too. And a little nervous.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's how they always start out, though. You start out real stiff and trying to think of, like, what happened when I grew up? Do I even know? Like, yeah, but then as you get into it, the flow starts to come, and you're just like, oh, okay, I remember.
Going way back.
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant calls that working into a lather.
Is that
Working into a lather. All right.
Classic basketball term.
Exactly.
Very, very popular.
Tay-to-tay. All right. So I guess we'll start just a little bit about you. Where are you from?
Well, I was born and raised here in Soldotna, about a block away at CPH. And
What's CPH?
Central Peninsula Hospital.
Oh, okay.
Used to be CPGH, now it's just CPH. They dropped the general.
Mm-hmm.
And so I lived here my whole life, besides when I went to college in Washington and moved to Hawaii on a whim and came back to Alaska.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Wow. What? Why?
I don't honestly really know, other than it was really expensive to live in Hawaii.
That makes sense.
And I was away from my family, and my family, we're very, very close. So
Yeah.
I was like a serious FOMO for sure.
Oh, yeah. Did you miss the mountains, too, a little
Yeah.
bit? Yeah.
And just even though I can't really drive out of Alaska on any given day, I at least felt like if I needed to, I could leave. But on the island of Kauai, you can't really go anywhere.
Is there like a little bit of almost island claustrophobia?
Yeah,
kind of?
exactly.
I didn't even think about that. Like that would maybe be like something that would happen from living on the
Yeah,
island.
I think Kauai is like 33 miles long.
Especially
Yeah.
small island. Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
Although it is like heaven. So.
Yeah. I get that way even here. It's in a different sense, though, because I'm from Montana.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's like big sky country.
Yeah.
And especially where we're from on the eastern side of the state, it's like flat, super dry, but the sky goes forever. Like, you can see to the very end of the sky. And, like, I first moved here, like, a year ago, and, like, the first thing I thought was, like, dude, these trees are, like, going to fall on top of me. Because, like, you can't see.
Right.
It's just trees everywhere. You can't see, like, trying to look over and just can't see anything. I did was like really claustrophobic for like the first month I lived here. Was like just this weird
I didn't even
sense of
think about that.
acclimation,
That's
like,
interesting.
felt like I was
Well,
gonna
the
die.
fires might be taking care of some of that.
Yeah. We're gonna have some big sky country here
For sure.
Oh man.
So what was you said you're close with your family? Have you always
Yeah.
been that close with your family?
Yeah. Yeah. I've got 2 brothers and 1 sister, and the younger of the 2 of us, me and my brother David, we were always really close growing up because we were like each other's friend and playmate. And then my other 2 siblings, Jason and Amy, are a little bit older, so they were kind of in their own world and got to babysit us. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, great parents, and I'll get into I've got my mom still, but my dad passed away when I was still using. So that's definitely a part of my story that is near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. How old are you when your dad passed away?
Let's see, it's going to be 6 years in November, so that would age me back to 29.
Congrats.
Yeah.
On the 6 years. And being 29.
Well, I'm not 6 years sober.
Oh, okay.
But
okay.
yeah, no, I had to stumble and fall and
Right.
roll around in the muck before after he passed, and then
Right.
made some mistakes and
So had you been Had you been like trying to get sober before your dad passed? Like at times?
Yeah, I think I was kind of in denial about it actually being a problem. I mean, part of me, it was like I was Jekyll and Hyde. Like I knew that there was a problem and it was embarrassing to address. But yet, I would tell everyone else, like, you know, I don't have to drink. I can quit when I want. And I just don't want to, right? And so I would just keep at it, and it affected everything in my life, including my relationship with my family.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So how? So was it mostly drinking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty much all drinking. I mean, I would smoke pot here and there, but that was mostly in my younger days, like maybe middle school. Well, for sure middle school. And then not as much in high school because I was involved in swimming, and I was very involved in swimming, which is how me and our mutual friend know each other. Yeah, so I was pretty straight-laced in high school.
Yeah.
I've actually tried swimming under the influence. It's not enjoyable.
Oh my
You just feel like you're drowning the whole time. There's nothing good about it. No, just wanted to put that in there.
When I used to smoke in like high school, you know, it was just like a bunch of guys, and so we'd all go to like this little school like outside of town to play basketball. And I'd always be like, dude, I feel so good. Like I'm gonna play so well. Like I just like when I get there, dude, and the ball's so heavy, and like
You're out of breath.
so heavy.
my body just feels like a noodle, bro. And so like I just start like giving it one of these, like throwing it up. Like
Is there a chair I can sit in while I'm doing
Yeah.
this? Because
just absolutely terrible. Bro. It was just never good at anything.
Yeah.
While using, dude, like just wasn't good.
Confidence is there. It's like,
Oh, yeah, dude.
Oh yeah, I'm really in it. I really
It's like
feel
that
it.
scene from
No,
American
you're
Pie.
wrong.
I repeat, confidence is high. Confidence is high. It was so bad.
So, was it around middle school that like you tried your first drink, or was when was that?
it's really foggy. In fact, I don't even know that I've really put an age on it. But I think it was before middle school because there's a certain friend who I associated with those years. And we went to Seward for the 4th of July. And I remember actually like getting on top of the car. I've got a drink in each hand. And I was singing Two Pina Coladas by Garth Brooks. At the top of my lungs. So, and of course we swam in
Before
the inlet, or I mean in the you know, out in the ocean, and you know, before middle school.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and my friend's mom actually references that like all the time, like in
it seems very memorable.
in a positive light too.
Yeah.
So yeah, because I mean it was a fun memory. It was a blast. I shouldn't have been doing it. When my mom listens to this, she's gonna be like, "What?"
Right.
But that's when the fun really began.
So what was that experience like? So your first time, you're having like this obviously pretty positive association. Like, kind of take us back like to that. Like, how does that come about? Like before middle school. You know what I mean? Like you're probably what 10?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So neighborhood friends. This one in particular was the friend that I would sneak out and go hang out with, and would smoke pot with, and my parents always trusted me, and I always did stay close to the tracks that I was supposed to be on. But occasionally I'd be like, all right, you know, well, what's this gonna hurt, right? And so I did get into a few things that I shouldn't have. You know, I wasn't supposed to be riding ATVs, and I wasn't supposed to be riding snow machines, and but I did those things because I was like, I'm in control, I know what I'm doing. And so it was basically just hanging out with a neighborhood friend. And then we had the opportunity to go to Seward, and it was like everyone's celebrating, so what's the big deal? And so it's not like I blame her mom for anything. It was everywhere. And, you know, we just kind of got into it. And, yeah, it was all just a positive association with it. And a little bit of being a bad girl because I was invincible.
Yeah.
And I know growing up, being a teenager, you kind of want independence of some kind. You want your own, just like you're talking about with ATVs and snow machines, you're like, I'm ready for this.
Yeah.
Was that did drinking develop into kind of the same place in the sense of this is kind of like, oh, I'm being independent, or I'm kind of
Yeah.
being an adult.
Yeah, there is a bit of rebel in me for sure. I didn't feel like I've never really cared what people thought about me. I didn't think, oh, well, I'll be cool if I drink. I just felt like when I do drink, I feel like, in retrospect now, the world closed in around me, and it was just me in this small little, bubble, and everything was so much funner, right? And so I didn't really think about it other than we don't have alcohol in the house. They have alcohol in the house. It's funner over there. And so after I go to bed and I knew my parents were asleep, I'd sneak right back out and go take part in whatever was going on down the road.
So your parents didn't drink at all?
Not really.
Not
The
really,
occasional glass of wine for my mom, very occasional. And then my dad would have a margarita when we'd go out for Mexican food, and that's it. If he had any beers in the house, they would either collect dust or be in the fridge for a year. So.
And that's a different take. That's not usually what we hear in recovery stories. It's not usually from what I remember. It's not usually like, yeah, the home's pretty stable, that kind of thing. But I know even that can foster even more of like, I guess, a rebellious kind of state potentially.
And I think we see that more with alcohol than like illicit substances. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people, or not a lot of people, I guess. Like a lot of people that we've talked to that are in recovery, especially like with alcohol now, are like, you think of like, I don't want to say his name, but yeah, I'm talking about, like, yeah, and like a pretty stable home, but like his parents drank, it's just kind of like this thing where like, or like on fishing boats, like everyone else drank, and like, oh, I'm trying to be a little bit older than I am, or this or that, and it's one of those things where like you're not necessarily in some cases you're not necessarily in like dire need of like some family like stability or anything like that. You're not necessarily trying to like cover up pain or anything like that we typically see with like illicit substance users.
That's a good point.
But like, you just want to party. You know what I mean? You just want to have fun. You're doing like what normal kids do, but it's just like something else. It's like, oh, I want to do what normal kids do, but when I do this, I'm not normal. Every time I drink, I pretty much black out every time. I'm the one who doesn't stop. And then like, but in high school, you get into this weird thing where like, at least in my experience, like pretty personal experience, I guess maybe I'm projecting here a lot, but it's like you kind of get that thing where it's like, oh, now you can kind of find an identity in that. You know what I mean? Where like, especially when you have siblings, dude, it's kind of hard to find like an identity sometimes. You're like, oh, you're so and so's brother, or you're so and so's kid, or you're so and so this and so that. Like, you don't really like being around so many people. You don't really have a chance to figure out like who you are as an individual. Because you're around so many people and so many influences all the time. So like, when you get like this like identity of like, oh, this is the partier, like when you want to have fun, call Caitie or call Aaron, since I'm projecting, you know what I mean? or like call that friend,
Right.
Like you kind of get this like, oh yeah, that's who I am kind of thing. And then like for me, I guess like I ran with that. I mean, that was a rabbit trail, but
no. I for sure, I was Gary's kid. I was Lou's daughter. And I was Martin's, I was my brother's younger sister. And so, especially because we were so close in age, I was just the little, Klingon sister. So, but I've always had such a, presence, I feel like. And I've always been the one that everyone, like my family would be like, apply filter now, or, and so I think when I started dabbling in alcohol, I think it brought out more of that. And so people started seeing Caitie plus, Caitie's being extra, right? And so I loved that because they were like, well, Caitie's, I'm not saying when I was young, Caitie's cool, because if you look at pictures of me when I was young, I was not cool. But I've always just had that like, fun kind of personality, and that definitely exponentially made me more extra, and I loved it. And so I felt like I was boring. So going back to regular Caitie was like boring, wah wah, you know.
Right.
So I think looking back, I think I struggled with that a lot because I had a new enhanced identity.
Mm-hmm.
So did your parents ever talk to you about like alcohol or anything like that, or?
Yeah.
Did
I mean,
ever
they
start
didn't
catching
know
on?
that I was dabbling in it when I
Yeah.
was as young as I was. So they didn't feel the need to express to me that my aunt and my uncle were both alcoholics. My aunt has been recovered a long, long, long time. Well, both of them have, but her especially. But I didn't know that because I was young and just like, you know, like my ceiling's right here and the adults are up here. And I had no concept of like real problems or real character flaws or anything. Like
Right,
I had no idea. So it wasn't until I was starting to have problems that I was aware of that. You know, somewhat recently in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, they talked to me about it when I was starting to make stupid choices. And
Right. When do you start making stupid choices?
so after high school, because like I said, I was pretty straight laced in high school. Junior year, I was assistant captain, and senior year, I was captain of the swim team. So I had to stay focused, and I was okay with that. That was just kind of the normal for me in my household. Sports and academics, although, you know, academics not so well, but
Sports up here, academics, yeah, a little bit of both.
and actually, I showed up to a party at our neighbor's house, and I asked my mom, I said, Mom, it's a party. I'm in high school. You see the porch from here. Can I just go and say hi or whatever? And she's like, yeah, I guess. And so I went and I said hi. And I didn't drink, you know, because I had a swim meet the next morning. And that was a thing. Every weekend I was either out of town or had a home meet.
Yeah.
And so when I walked into that party, I hear, Caitie, you know, my last name. You're here? What are you doing here? You know, because I just was never allowed, and I just couldn't go to parties. But it was when I was in college, I would call my dad and be like, "Oh my God, Dad, I'm at a triple kegger. It is off the hook," you know, and he'll be like, "Well, don't tell your mother," you know. and he just, bless his heart, he was so proud of me and loved me so much, and but he wanted me to have fun, and I think he wanted to be the fun, cool parent too.
Right.
So I would call him, and I felt like I had that bond with him, even though he didn't really drink. I'd be like, "I'm having so much fun, Dad," and I could always tell him things that my mom would be like, "You know, you should do this. You know, you shouldn't do that."
Like, Mom, I already know.
I know that, but I want to have.
I'm still doing it.
I'm still doing it, and I want to bounce this off somebody. And so I would be at these parties in college, and there have been some.
That's really interesting, dude, because, like, I think about that, and I'm like, if there was any time I'm at a party at any age, like, ever, the last person I'm calling is any of my parents.
Yeah.
Like, as I got older, like, into, like, 21 plus, like, me and my stepdad got to the point where we go to, like, different sporting events, you know, and have some beers, but, like, never, like, oh, I'm not, like, 19 calling my parents, like, I'm so bummed, like, or, like, I'm not a triple kegger. My mom would be like, oh, my God, dude, shut up. Like, you loser. Click. Like, that's just like, honestly, it's kind of nice though, in ways, because it's like, it is that thing where at least you know, like, when you call, you're not gonna get shamed. You're gonna be supported.
And they did really stress that when I was younger. Both my mom and my dad, like, call me if you're. And I did have to call my mom a couple times when I was just like, you know, oops, you know, maybe you should come get me because. You know, and then there wasn't any talk about it. It was, I would go down to my room and, you know, and I did the right thing. I mean, I did the first the first choice was a wrong choice, but I came around in the
You didn't
end.
make it any worse, so that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting that you brought that up because that's not something that I would do. But at the same time, someday in the future when I have kids, I wouldn't mind that. Like I wouldn't mind. At least they're checking in. Like I mean, if they're if they're below 21, maybe I'll be like, hey, you should probably come home. This was a bad idea. But other than that, like what you were saying, it's almost like you're sharing that good time with your dad, and at that point, it sounded like it was still kind of a positive experience. Hadn't quite hit that part. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we've seen this pattern before. But it's like at some point the party kind of stops, but then you don't. Like it doesn't for you. So you get to that college life. It's like, this is the best time. I don't want this to end. And people are kind of leaving that party zone, but you're still in the middle of it. Like,
oh yeah,
what? Why we're still going? What?
Yes. Oh yeah, I remember being so angry with the people who would either pass out or leave. I'd be like, whoa, there's so much more partying to be done. Like,
it's not even 6 a.m. yet. Yeah. We got time.
Yeah. You don't need to go to that class, right?
Yeah.
I failed economics twice because of my behavior.
That just hits me too personally right there. Yeah. Well, I just started college again for the second time. And so like I remember so my first semester at college, the very first semester I went, I was like, oh man, I need a little more freedom. I'm an adult. I'm 18 now. I need some responsibility. I think I was 19 actually. So I'm going to go live in the dorms. I went to college in the same town I went to high school in. There was no reason for me to live with the dorms. It's just an expensive choice that I made because I wanted to party. And so then I was in the dorms literally 3 months, dude. They kicked me out. Yeah, same thing. They're like, dude, you got 3 noise complaints and the first 2 days, you're drinking too much. They gave me $800 to leave the dorms.
We'll pay you $800 to get out of here.
We'll just refund all your dorm fees, bro. You just can't be here.
Wow.
And honestly, it was one of those things where the party, if I would have went home 2 hours earlier, I might have been fine. I very genuinely might have been okay. But it's around 3, 4 in the morning, people start waking up, and you're being a little too loud. Yeah, I feel that on a really, really personal level, right in the whole heartstrings.
Yeah, speaking of dorms, when we signed up for me to go to college in Washington, my mom thought, well, maybe you should be in this certain dorm because there was a no alcohol, no tolerance, good kid dorm. Mm-hmm. So she's like, maybe you should go to that one. And I was like, I mean, all right. I mean, I can have my fun elsewhere, right? Mm-hmm. So I tried, and it went okay for a while. But the moment there was an open room in the other dorms, I jumped on it. I was like, get me out of here. And I had been rooming with a girl that I went to high school with and swam on the swim team with. And we were great friends. Mm-hmm. And we got down there, and she was doing the studious thing, and I was doing the not studious thing. And I would come in at 3 a.m. She'd be asleep, and then so we started button heads, and there was all this weird tension because we were living completely different lives. We had totally different priorities, and I mean, it took a long time after college, before we started being friendly to one another again, and that really sucks. That's one of the many relationships that I shit on.
Is that the first time that your drinking really creates this division in any relationship at that point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think that might have been the first one that it was. I can definitely say it was alcohol that made me the person that was unlikable and intolerable. I had no care in the world for her needs, or I didn't respect her space, our space. And so I just did the easy thing, which is go be with more people like me. Mm-hmm. And so you are who you surround yourself with. I fully believe that.
Oh, yeah. So what was going through your head during that process where you're like, well, she's lame, I'm moving on? kind of
Yes,
thing, more or
exactly.
less.
Super lame. And I had a roommate before her, the one that I was assigned, who was like super into Mickey Mouse and the dorkiest ever. I was like, get me out of this. And that was like...
She's going to be listening to this going, like,
Yeah.
whatever, Katie.
I don't even remember her name. It didn't last long, but a couple weeks. But that was a personality thing. It was just not gonna work. But with my high school friend, it was definitely the alcohol. But yeah, I was like, I'm gonna go surround myself with people who like to have more fun, and it got me into some tough situations.
I feel like fun is air quotable.
Totally.
Fun, yeah. So you're moving to the dorms. How long did you stay in school?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. So running and gunning pretty hard, I imagine, at 2.5 years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So what does that look like with your relationship, like with your parents? Like you said, you failed economics twice. I'm assuming your grades probably aren't amazing at this point.
No. They were pretty bad. Actually, I printed off my transcripts last week to give to a potential employer. And I was like, can I just tell you how many credits I have, or do you have to see what I was in and what I didn't finish? Because it was piss poor. I mean, I'm pretty sure I nailed golf, and there were a few classes. In fact, U.S. history or whatever history it was, I did really well in. And I think it's because my teacher was cool and she made it fun, actually. But that, you can't always count on college professors being that way. But yeah, grades were very poor, for sure.
And so is that affecting your relationships at all? With your family?
Oh yeah, right. Sorry, I forgot the point of the question. They just kind of encouraged me to try harder. I think they knew that I would be having fun in college, and I'm not really sure. They didn't come down on me too hard. That's when I moved to Hawaii, because I had come home for summer and met a guy, and he moved back to the dorms with me, or not to the dorms. I was renting the basement of a house with a friend, also from here. It was a WUI school, so the Western Undergraduate Exchange. So there were a lot of people that I knew there. And so he moved back with me to college, and then we were like, let's be jerks to this friend, who is now my daughter's teacher, by the way, over at Skyview. Let's be an to him.
That's what you call full circle, right?
Yeah, totally. And ruin this relationship and move to Hawaii. Of course, it's not like a conscious choice, but I was defending the relationship I was in, which was toxic, and which in turn was 2 against 1 on my friend and roommate. And so we just basically ditched. And it wasn't until, again, recent years where, I'm pretty sure he avoided eye contact with me, and I had to yell his name a few times, and then he finally turned around, because I'm that kind of person, hey, look at me, and so then I run up and give him a hug, and I need to do this probably at parent-teacher conferences, as weird as that sounds. I'm going to have the opportunity to make amends to him. But yeah, every time someone had the right idea of life, I turn the other cheek. So
do you think it started building up and kind of becoming a momentum thing? It's I don't know how your friend was reacting at the time, if he was you need to change or anything, or if this was just a
super level-headed, very calm, cool, collected, very respectable.
Yeah, but was it kind of still searching for that good time, in Hawaii? Was that the next goal? You're now that's where it's gonna the party's gonna kind of keep going. Was that kind of your mindset, or was?
Yeah, because he and I had just gotten together over the summer, and then I did a half year of half-assed college, and then we ended up selling stuff so we could move there, and it was a very manipulative and toxic relationship, like I had mentioned. And so
How does that contribute to your drinking at this point?
I felt crazy. I felt like I was in love with this person because of the things that he said and the way that just a narcissistic behavior. Anything I would do that wasn't right was, I just felt like I was never doing anything right, always walking on eggshells. And then he was never doing anything wrong. So it's my perception of what he's doing that's the problem. And it was just a mess. And so it got worse and worse. And I remember when we were on the island, we had a car, but he would always take the car. And so I rode the bike everywhere. And so I was kind of stuck. Couldn't really do a whole lot. I got a job at the local fish market, and I loved that. And just kind of kept it close to home. But I didn't have any freedom. And so there was tension because I'd be like, can I take the truck? And, it's like, well, I need to work. Like, someone's got to work, because my job wasn't as good as his job, apparently. And so it just got really bad to the point where I was hitchhiking. That's dangerous. That was definitely not something that my parents would approve of, especially on the island. I mean, I love it to death, but there's a lot of drugs there. There's a lot of drugs here, but I kind of know how to navigate around this area and who, you just kind of know where you're at here. But there we ended up getting jumped by a bunch of meth heads and having to drive home in a drunken panic. It was the scary. That's the moment we moved home. I'm going off on all sorts of tangents, but he brought a lot of crazy out of me, and I would definitely drink because of it.
Yeah.
And so when I was stuck at home, a different 4th of July, he didn't come home until well after, midnight. And so I was wasted by the time he got home. Then we fought and then we did cocaine, and then we made up, and then it was just a big mess. It was a storm, and that was my life. And it felt normal after a while.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of get used to the chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, on a day-to-day, like, what's your drinking look like? Like, are you drinking it, like, before work? Are you going, like, what's your day-to-day
So
look like at this point?
when we moved back to right now,
No.
I'm like, that's not a very good story. I don't know how much.
No, like, when
It's
you're
zero,
in Hawaii,
still.
like, towards the end, like, where you're kind of enveloped in this relationship. And,
Oh yeah. So I had to leave and go to my brother's wedding in Tennessee. So I left the island, and it was weird being like, I felt, even though they were in Alaska and I was in Hawaii, I felt like when I met back up with them, like I had been on Mars, and so normal life with my normal family that I normally enjoy to the fullest, it was just kind of weird. And I still had that, like, I need to drink to be my fun self.
Yeah.
And so I don't even remember much of that, honestly, because it was just really bizarre to me. But, of course, I remember the wedding, but it was just weird. And so that was kind of a glimpse of, like, whoa, when I go back to, like, real life, when we move back to Alaska, what's it going to be like? I've kind of ostracized my family a little bit at that point because they didn't approve of what I was doing. How was I supposed to keep doing it?
Honestly,
if they
probably
didn't-
rightfully so.
Oh, for sure.
what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
for sure.
Those crazy people don't want me to drink and be in toxic relationships.
I know. So I would say I moved back, I got a job, and I was doing really well. I got pregnant within a year, had my daughter when I was 22, and, fast forward, he and I had a lot of fights because, again, he wouldn't approve of me leaving the house when I had a newborn. And I am not one of those moms who, like, will sit at the house and like tend to the kid. I was like, oh my God, somebody get me out of here. Like I'd have my mom come pick me up and take me into town so I could at least be with another person. It was, being a new mom was really, really hard for me. So, but he would want me to stay there. And then he would be mad if it wasn't clean, or like, what'd you do today, you know? And I'm like, well, I tried to keep this child happy, and I like, it's been really hard, you know. I've got the doula, or the I think they call it like la leche nurse or whatever, coming over to help me breastfeed because I'm having a hard time with that. And he loses his job because he's around in Delta and with like drug felons and stuff, and so he moves back, and now we have no income. And anyway, it's just like, it was a show. And so I ended up leaving him when my daughter was 2. And
so just to backtrack real
yeah,
quick, what did your use look like right before you got pregnant? Like just a day-to-day, like kind of like run me through a day in the life of Caitie.
I actually was doing really well at that point because I was living with my parents.
Oh, okay.
We were both living with my parents.
Oh, okay.
So that's
what kind of effects did that have on like your relationship with your parents? Like having this guy and you living in their house?
It was fine. Yeah. It was actually kind of bizarre because
if I'm your parent, I'm stressed.
Right. Well, the thing is, you got to factor in that he was extremely manipulative.
Okay.
He was the fun, lovable guy, you know.
Yeah.
And so we would make drinks like margaritas because I knew my dad loved margaritas. He'll be accepting of our behavior if we say, "Oh, Dad, we got margaritas." Mm-hmm. And so we did. We got the magic bullet out. You know, we're making margaritas, and my mom would, you know, partake a little bit just to kind of probably appease me a little bit, and my dad would have a little. But I mean, just like, yay, cheers, sip, and then I'm done with it, right? And then we'd be like, oh, you know, drink all the tequila. So we were pretty good. And then it was when we moved out that, you know, they were able to see kind of what was going on. And I still wasn't drinking a lot, but enough to get pregnant without like realizing I wasn't, you know, being, you know, prudent about taking my contraceptives. So just kind of falling off the responsible track a little bit. But
so that was a pretty long relationship.
Yeah. I mean, let's see, I was 19 when we got together, I think, and we were together till she was 2. It wasn't that long. I mean, what was that, like 5 years?
It's a decent amount of time to me.
Yeah.
Someone gave me 5 more years to be okay with it.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
I'm sitting
it
here
was
thinking, dude, like that's literally like 20% of my life.
Right.
Like,
Oh man, but I mean, especially in that kind of toxic relationship, that kind
It
of
was very
control
confusing. Very confusing.
Was there like a period of kind of rediscovering yourself after that was over, like not feeling closed in anymore?
Yeah, and that's probably
was that where kind of things went
off
a little bad?
Yeah, because I left him and I had an apartment in Kenai. And now that I was free, and boy, did I feel free. I would, on weekends, I would start drinking like in the morning, and just because I had my own space, I was taking pride in my space, and I'd be like, I can drink and putter around and do the laundry and you know, keep the place clean. It's my own little place, and that's what I would do. I would just drink, and then it'd be like, oh, Caitie, can you run by my house to grab blah, blah, blah? And I'd be like, no, I can't. And then the excuses started, you know, I can't because, or, you know, or yes, I can that day, but then the day came and I wouldn't do it. And so with that freedom I became my own prisoner.
So you think that lack of structure was kind of what contributed? Because it sounded like in high school you had the swim team and you just like it was gone. Like, you
Yeah.
didn't even really think about it. And when you were in Hawaii, you had that job you had to go to, and you had to bike a lot and stuff. And with your parents, that was that structure. But it sounds like when you're on your own, and you're really on your own, that freedom is almost, it's working against you.
For sure.
Because you're like, I don't really have to be accountable here. I mean, I got to make sure this gets done and this gets done, but hey, you know, I enjoy dishes more when I'm drunk, so why not?
Yes, and cooking.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I could not cook without drinking. To the point where, like, what I made was not even edible because I'd forget about things and burn them, or I would add too much of something because I was just literally, like, spinning around the room, like, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, you know, and just like, what is this mess that you made? You know?
It doesn't work out like the Disney movies.
No, it doesn't.
It's not quite.
Anyone who comes over like, this is terrible.
Yeah.
That's
Oh
not good.
gosh.
But
yeah.
at some point, does it start? I mean, it's got to start catching up to you that, you know, even I don't know if this realization would really occur, but that, you know, after a certain point, it's just not fun just living day to day without it, and so you that becomes the regular, and then that's not even enjoyable. I don't know if that's how it works exactly, but even in my experience with like weed is like once that becomes your that's a good time. Like every day, that's part of it. But then it just becomes that's a normal time. And what's the next level? How do you keep having fun? It's either more or something else. So
Yeah, it closes in on you, the time. So, like, when it got really bad, I don't want to skip ahead too far, but just while you're on that note, like, when it got really bad, I would drink until you know, it was like, I better go to bed or I'm not going to make it to work in the morning, you know? So I drink until then, and then I get up in the morning, feel like probably throw up, and then I drink more before going to work, and then I couldn't wait to get off work so I could go have more hair to the dog, and then it leaves a window about 5 minutes in my day that I'm not actually drinking.
Yeah.
So that's a little glimpse into the final days of drinking.
So actually, let's get there. So
Okay.
when does it like when's this transition from like, oh, on the weekends to like every day?
So in 2013 it was July of 2013, my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 terminal cancer. So that went south very fast. He ended up dying in November. And so while he was sick, I would literally go visit him after drinking. I don't know if it was because I just was having a hard time coping. I'm sure that's part of it. But I couldn't even go visit him first and then go drink. Like, I had to drink first. And then my mom would be like, you smell like beer. And then, because I was keeping it pretty cash by just having beer, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so then I'd stop by my dad, and he would be like in his bed, and he'd say, I'd give him a kiss, and he'd say, you've been drinking, and oh God, it just is so painful to go back there. But I'd be like, oh, Dad, I just stopped at the brewery, no big deal, come on. And just like he was when I would call him from the Triple Kegers, he'd just kind of shrug it off like no big deal and still be happy that I came to visit him and lay by his side and watch baseball. And so then after he passed away, that was in November. I got a DUI in February. I was a mess. I dropped my daughter off with her dad and went to the back door and drank, and I was house sitting in Nikiski, which I'm not super familiar with Nikiski, right? And there's also no like street lights or anything, and it's February, it's dark, it's icy, and I didn't even think about it. I remember grabbing my keys and just like going to the door and jumping in the truck and taking off. And I was looking for the road and that I was supposed to turn on, and I'm like, is this it? Is this it? And I'd slow down, and then nope, and then I speed up. So I did that like 3 or 4 times, and somebody called me in. So when I got pulled over, I was like, holy my life. Like, my life is over. It's it. My life is over. There's no getting out of this, right? And so when the cop pulled me over, he told me what happened and whatever, and I just thanked him for pulling me over because I realized that I could have killed somebody or myself. And
Wow.
that, like, even though I was so wasted, I totally got that. And I was like, I'm so glad that I'm safe and whatever. And I ended up blowing like a .314, I
Holy
think.
smokes!
So I was obliterated.
bad.
You were alive. That's good. But
Barely.
yeah.
In fact, it took me so long to sober up in the drunk tank at the jail. Like, I couldn't even believe how long it took me to get to the. You have to blow 0.00 to get out of that
Wow.
jam.
Yeah.
And so anyway, after the DUI,
Dude, I think like coma and death is like 0.5.
yeah.
It's really close.
It was-
This is very
Like
close.
0.32, 0.5.
Everyone
I
was
think that's
really
a range.
surprised that I was walking and driving. And so anyway, I
I
stayed.
guess you got to remember, like,
Tolerance.
yeah, you've been drinking a lot for a long time. Yeah, so that's probably really, like,
I could and I was actually proud of this. I could outdrink, most grown men. And so that's why I would start before I went places, and then I'd be kind of like, I don't know what I was thinking. But so I stayed pretty bad after that. I was just not dealing with his death well. And so I was just like ruining everything in my life. And I forgot where I was going with this.
It's just kind of. I think we're getting to the part where it's not really sustainable anymore. It's
Right.
like-
Yeah. I was to the point where I was like coughing up blood,
wow.
and I had such bad anxiety I couldn't sleep at night, so I'd go like 3 days without actual sleep. I'd lay down and just watch the moon move and watch the alarm clock, and the time just elapse, and then it's time to get up and go to work.
Jeez.
And so I'm like
gotta
battling the
drink first,
yeah, I got to drink first.
Yeah.
Battling the anxiety, not sleeping, not eating because I'm drinking my calories, and then going to work. It was awful. And so I had a seizure at work.
Wow.
And broke my head open, peed myself, everything I was a barista.
yeah.
So I was rushed to the hospital, and I mean, I was turning blue and everything, my coworker said. And they didn't say, they just said, well, we're going to run you through all these tests. You're going to go see the neurologist. And so I did the heart monitor. I did all the tests. And everything was normal. And I knew it was like my drinking was the root of all of these problems.
Like, we're trying to draw blood. It just keeps evaporating.
Right? So I knew it was a long time coming, man. I knew there was a problem. We all knew there was a problem. And I had told myself those mornings that I'd wake up sick like that, I'd be like, God, please let me never drink again. Oh, we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
Like, I will never drink again. And that gave me anxiety.
Except for right now.
Yeah, right.
Except for when I feel good again. We don't talk about that. Don't worry.
So I begged, I was like, God, please just take away whatever it is that is making me drink. And I prayed on that for a long, long time. And so finally I was drinking alone because my daughter was with a friend. And so I was just sitting at home because it's cheaper to drink at home. I don't know if anyone knows this.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But you don't have to tip. You don't. Anyway, all that shit. I was like, well, and plus nobody's monitoring my intake.
There's not a bartender like making sure you're okay and make sure you
Yeah.
don't slump over.
So
Yes.
This is after the seizure in the hospital visit?
Yes, I had a couple seizures. One at work and one after I had, tried quitting.
Yeah.
So it was May 18th when my daughter was with her friend, and I called my mom and I said, Mom, I'm afraid to go to sleep because a friend of mine lost his brother from just like
Out face up or something.
passing out in his laundry.
Oh, laundry. Wow.
Yeah, like
No
on the
kidding.
bed, or I forget
Wow.
exactly, but so that was in my mind the whole time. And I was like, Mom, I'm afraid to go to sleep. And so she took me to the ER, because I can always call my mom. I know that even though she's you should and you shouldn't. Well, you shouldn't have, la, la, la. She was always the one that I could count on to not judge me and take me where I needed to go. So she did. She took me to the ER, and they came and got me. Care Transitions came and got me. And she couldn't even, like, see me off. Like, she couldn't bring me to Care Transitions. She couldn't bring me things. She had to bring them to the intake office.
Wow.
And I couldn't have my cell phone and all that. And so it was like, whoa, this is really happening, right? But I was really excited. I was really excited that I had taken that step. And so...
Dude, Care Transitions is amazing. Dude.
It is amazing. And there was a guy who walked out of there while I was there, and I was just so sad for him because he had been there for a few days, and I'm like, you're almost through the worst of it. I mean, it was like first day, right? But I'm like, you're almost through the worst of it. Like, I have any idea, right?
Right.
But that's what they were telling him, and so I figured they were right. And I met a wonderful lady in there who I'm still very good friends with, and we talk occasionally, see each other at the stores. And I'm just so grateful that I got in there, because it was not fun being in there, but I made that step, and I was like, I'm gonna be dead if I ever drink again after this.
Right.
But I did,
Yeah.
And I was damned because
because it was 4th of July again. Here it is.
That day just comes
Classic.
around every year.
Yeah, why?
Oh yeah, you know, yeah.
I understand though. I was like, but it's April 20th, dude.
Yeah.
It's like, no,
Yeah.
don't do it.
I get that way around my birthday.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, dude, it's my birthday. Like, and I didn't this year. Let's just
Way to
throw
go,
this out
dude.
there. The
Way to
first
go.
year I didn't drink on my birthday.
Congrats.
It's like 15,
No, that's
so-
awesome, dude.
But dude, same thing. I'm like, it's my birthday. Like, if there's any year or any day ever that's like gotta be celebrated, bro, it's Groundhog's Day and my birthday. Like,
We just watched that yesterday. That's super weird that you said that.
when we were in high school, my brother and I used to like, and I think I ran with it a little more in college, but like, come up with random days to get in trouble. But come on, bro, it's Groundhog's Day. It's Flag Day, dude. Half Christmas is every June 12th at noon, so it's half Christmas. Dude, like, whatever. Like, just the most ridiculous things. And part of it was satire, obviously, like, just being ridiculous anyway, but like, I know I feel that.
Yeah.
Birthday.
So that's what started. It sounds like what started your I guess the road to recovery or on that path was legitimate fear of death.
Yes.
You're like, I could die, and I'm not okay with that. So
And I have a daughter. You know?
yeah. So how was that kind of relationship? Where was she in all this?
Oh, she has been an old soul since day one. She is 12 now, and she is like an adult in my life. And she was when my dad died. I was a complete mess. Luckily, I hadn't drank too much the night before when my mom called me and said, you guys need to get here like right away. This is it. And so I'm like, get your stuff. We gotta go. And I was just a big emotional mess. And she was like, okay, Mom, I got the blah, blah, let's go. And she's so good. And, but when I was in my she was probably 7 by the time she knew it was bad.
Oh,
right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, in the latter part of these years, she's been like, really, Mom? Or I'd say, I'm going to run down to the gas station. She knew exactly what that meant.
Yeah.
Because they had the 2 bottles of R&R for the $14.95. And so that was the best deal in town. And I'd be like, I'm going to run to the gas station. I'd tuck her in and be like, I'm going to run to the gas station. Ugh. Mom, really? Really, Mom? Why do you... And then she could just tell. She would walk in the door from school, and she could just tell that I had been drinking. And she would just, not give me the time of day and go to her room. And, go play with friends and whatever. And so she resented me toward the end for that. And she was definitely a reason to quit. And I kept telling her the same time, I'm like telling myself, I'll never drink again. I tell her I'll never drink again. And I'm done. I know I need to quit. I'm done. And it was just such a struggle those last, once I had decided, it was a struggle to actually quit.
Yeah. Did she almost keep you accountable, though?
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like she was very opinionated, about it. It wasn't just like, oh, yeah, whatever, Mom. It's just like, this is not okay. I'm not okay with this.
Yeah.
So.
In fact, when she was like 4, because I was smoking at the time for whatever reason, because, just, I'm an idiot. But I would only smoke when I would drive in the car or like in the morning and then right before I went to sleep. So she was like, Mom, smoking's bad. Like, she's learning in school smoking's bad.
Yeah.
And here I am smoking, right? Ugh, so disgusting too. It's so bad. And one morning I got up and she's still in bed and I like grab my pack and I'm like headed outside to smoke, and I get out there and I'm like, ha ha ha, now's my time, Because it's those simple, stupid little addictive, here's
nobody
my
knows.
moment. Yeah, nobody knows. Did it actually happen? Right? And I open up the pack and all of the cigarettes are busted in half. She pulled them out, busted them in half, and then slid them back into the pack and set the pack back where I had it hiding, where it was hidden. And she never said a word about it. And the next morning, when she woke up, I said, did you do this? And I'm like clenching my jaw, like, did you do this? And she's like, you said you would quit. And I was like,
what a power move.
Oh yeah, she's brutal. She's awesome. So yeah, when it came to the drinking, she was just like, and I just knew I was an embarrassment because I was so freaking extra, everywhere we went. Mom's being extra, because I don't need it. Like, you can probably tell I'm just kind of like, woo, out there, opinionated, just whatever. Outspoken. And so when I was drinking, I was just, if I didn't like what someone was doing, boy, did I tell them. And then she's like, oh my God, Mom, can you not? And I mean, she's like 5, whatever.
She's just like, Mom, you're being ridiculous. What?
I was such an
You're
yeah. Because it was long past everything's more fun. It's like, no, it's not even fun. It's just I can't do it without it now, and now I'm just an.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it from what I've heard you say, it almost sounds like when it started, you thought this is basically the best version of Caitie. Like even when you're talking about seeing your dad, it's almost to me it's almost like this is the most fun, the coolest version of me that I have to offer just anyone, or even feeling good about yourself, kind of. And then eventually, like you said, it progressed to I can't really, like, life just is kind of empty without this. Because like I was saying,
think that's kind of like the trademark of addiction is like, this is the best version of me until it's the worst version of me. You know what I mean? Like, you get to a certain point, like with people with addictive personalities that choose to use substances like this, or like just find themselves for whatever reason using substances, like, it honestly it does feel like it's the best version of you at 16. It's fun, like you said, like, you're fun, you're outgoing, you're extra, you're this, it's like all these positive identity things until you're 31 and you're loud and outgoing and extra and like all these things that like kind of as you get older, like as you mature, you're supposed to not necessarily like grow out of, but like refine in ways, you know what I mean, to make them more like not really acceptable, but more like productive in ways, like
Absolutely.
it's kind of is like the trademark of addiction is it's like it's the best version of me until it's the worst version of me, and then
And I think you start you start to lose before you get heavy into addiction, you are all those things like you mentioned, and then you introduce substance, and then you just kind of shed all the good that you were, and you become more of what the substance gives you. And until you just are empty, there is no the former Caitie. I don't know where she's at. In fact, when I did get sober, everyone's like, I'm so glad you're back. And I'm like, I have no idea even where I went. I was gone. I was completely gone. I was not the Caitie that people knew and loved. So, ugh.
This is kind of a side trail, but I wonder if that progression can lead into basically making identity out of your addiction. I mean, I've seen some people where it's like the very person they are is the substance. Like, that's what they identify with. They're always a person with, maybe Jack Daniels or maybe they're smoking or whatever. It just kind of becomes them. So I wonder if that's like the final form of it, is that is what your life is about. And that's basically it. And everything outside of that is just kind of extra, but it almost kind of becomes you. I wonder if that's related.
I think at the point, dude, I think you have, like, there's some standing there. And I think where that comes, dude, is, like, when you said, like, when it's no longer, like, this extra thing in your life. You think about the focus of your life, for, like, a lot of people, like, in your identity as the focus of your life, like, in that middle circle where it's, like, I'm a mother, I am this, or I'm a father, I am this, and, like, all these things that, like, we really, like, attach to as human beings, like, these part of ourselves that we identify. When it comes to the point where, like, those things are all on the outside, like these outside tethers, like I'm, like, drawing a little web map here.
Yeah.
Or like, oh yeah, I'm a mother over here, I'm a son over here, I'm a daughter over here, or, like, I do this or I'm this, but, like, most of all, like, I need to drink today. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Where, like, that becomes your focus and, like, your main priority and perspective. Like, oh, if I drink, then I'm a better. Or if I'm a better mother. Or if I, like, because we've had people use, like, especially, like, with stimulants in the past, where, like, I just felt like I was a better parent. Because I could keep up. I was getting, like, to work every day, and I was clean, and everything was clean. And
Enthusiastic.
Yeah, and, like, everything was fun. And, like, I really thought it was helping me. So I feel like you do kind of become... Like, it does kind of envelop your life at that point when that becomes your main priority and perspective. You know what I mean? Like, that becomes a main part of your identity.
And that really fits in with that, the frame, even of how we understand addiction nowadays, of it becoming, like you said, a priority over even becoming more than eating and drinking, more than shelter, to the point where you stop taking care of yourself because that's not the priority. Like you said, this is the center. So if this isn't, that center part isn't getting fulfilled, nothing else matters. It's like, well, I will figure out all this stuff after I get this, after I have my drink. Then I'll go clean the house, figure out my life, whatever, taxes,
Even if I was driving by the gas company and was like, ooh, I need to pay that bill. And I had my wallet. I could do it right now. I'm like, but I really need to get home and get a drink. Then maybe I'll call and pay over the phone.
Yeah.
Like, how ridiculous. That is real life example for me. So I did that all the time.
Right. Yeah. So tell us about this 4th of July. How long had it been? Like, this is the first kind of stumbling block, but you're on your way.
Yeah. Okay, so... May 18th is when I went into care transitions and passed with flying colors, And I was like, I'm doing good. But there was this weird feeling that I had that I was still dealing with how can I deal with never drinking again? Like, I couldn't get that in my head. Like, never the rest of my life I can't drink. And I'm like, oh God, I know that I'm going to drink at some point. There's no way.
That's a long time.
Even now saying that, it gives me, like, anxiety because it's like when you think about it in that huge scope, it's so hard,
Like, I'm never having Christmas again.
Yeah.
Or something. It's just
so
loss.
I was carrying that around with me like, I'm sober, yay! But how can I go the rest of my life without drinking? And so here comes the 4th of July. My boyfriend was working out of town, and it was me and my daughter, and I ended up going camping, and... I had to work the next day.
Oh boy.
At 1 p.m. So I partied all night, and my poor daughter just, like, along for the ride. Just, what a show. So I'm still wasted. We get a cab home at, like, noon. I get ready for work, go into work, and I end up, my boss asked me, have you been drinking? I said, well, I was camping last night. duh, it was the 4th of July. I was camping last night.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, you need to go home. Like, you can't be here because I think you're still under the influence, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go home, and then he has to report it or, like, write me up or whatever. So, and then HR decides they're going to let me go. So I got fired is what happened, really.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
see, there's my ism just, like, justifying, well, it was possibly still in my system, blah, 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 blah. No, I got fired for being drunk at work. That's the bottom line.
Right.
So...
And honestly, I mean, that I'm assuming that sucked. Just completely sucked at the time. But what a great, just immediately, takes you right back to this is not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you drink the first time since you got sober and immediately get fired.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if that is not the ultimate just smackdown of, like,
Yeah.
I messed up.
That is.
Like, jeez.
Yeah, that was kind of like, it's true. I can't drink.
Yeah.
I can't. Because there wasn't even like, well, maybe you should just have a couple and then go to work the next day. No, because if I was going to do it, I was going to do it.
Yeah, 2 turns into 6, turns into 9,
gosh.
turns into, well, who knows?
We're into
Right.
numbers of bottles at this point.
Oh my gosh.
It was brutal. And so, but with how much that sucked, there was a part of me that was like, wow, like, I'm really starting over now. Like, this is public knowledge. I was, like, a huge, important piece of that group at work. And people are going to see me out in town and wonder where I'm at and what's going on. So the only thing I could think of was to completely turn it all around and just be my best and make the next best choice. And I was like, I need to go to meetings. I need to, do all that. And I remember being in a meeting and saying, because I finally spoke at a meeting. Yikes, was that hard. I
How long have
said,
you been going before you spoke the first time?
so after care transitions, I went, and it was the most uncomfortable thing I can remember, like public anxiety feeling. And here I am thinking people are judging me, and I just blocked everybody out, and I just sat there, and I got a lot out of what other people said, but it was hard. And then I went again, and so that was in that from the 18th of May to the, so I had dabbled in it a little bit, and then I had to re-announce my sobriety day.
Right.
Because I was going to have a month, but I wasn't really going to have a month. So I said, because someone said, they said, do we have any birthdays for the month of whatever? And they're like, Caitie, don't you? And I'm like, no. So I was like, I have a new date. And so I remember getting my 1 month chip and seeing other people have like year and longer and just like, oh. But I remember, back to my point, I remember saying in that meeting, I'm just devastated that I lost my job. But I'm so excited because I just feel like there's something better. Like something's going to come along. And now I feel like I'm equipped to handle it and rock it and just embrace sobriety and just move forward.
Yeah. So did you do like the 90 meetings, 90 days sort of thing, or?
It was encouraged. I know that I went to several. I mean,
were a lot.
almost daily. I don't know if I hit the 90-90, but I was going every day.
Yeah.
And when I couldn't, I'd be like, I want to go to a meeting, because I just learned to love the people, and I realized there's so many people in our community who are just normal people. And they're in there. So it's not like it's a certain type of person, and
Right.
so I love going to meetings.
And I think that's important to note that often with the stigma of addiction that you kind of have the idea that, oh yeah, they're just going to be like, just imagine this person
quotes.
maybe like, yeah, with like a hood on, all just huddled up and non-communicative. But these are just regular people. Like, we have people we do podcasts with, you would have no idea that they almost died 4 times, or literally, like, or what they've been through. Even you
lost families and all sorts of stuff. Oh my gosh.
They're just, I mean, they're just regular. Like, they're just everyday regular people. You see them at the grocery store or whatever. You don't know what they've been through. So it's good to keep in mind that it's anybody, you know, and
I think that's something that if people like that aren't even in addiction or necessarily affected by addiction, like, ever happen to stumble across like these podcasts, you know what I mean, like, outside of even addiction, you know, like, everybody's going to face struggle at some point. You know what I mean? There's not going to be anybody on earth that's never struggled relatively for anything. You know what I mean? I think, like, myself included sometimes, I think as human beings, you know, we kind of get caught in the scope of self where we're like, oh, but their problem's not as bad as mine, or like, mine's not as bad as theirs, or like, just kind of like a comparative of like struggle. When at the end of the day, like, it's all pretty relative. It's all really relative. You know what I mean? Like, and just when we approach people with that, like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what this person's been through, or I don't know this person really that well at all, you know? And, like, in just the way we approach people in general, like, to approach people with, like, a certain sense of compassion, or, like, if we do see somebody who looks to be struggling, like, it's not like we've talked about before, like, nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, oh yeah, I'm just gonna do some heroin today, or I'm gonna get up and I'm just gonna drink into oblivion today, like, I'm just gonna get up and do this, like, the first time ever and just do it, you know what I mean? Like, nobody chooses that. Like, nobody chooses to, like, quote unquote, like, run themselves down that far, you know what I mean? Nobody, like, consciously makes a choice in one morning to be like, and today I'm gonna be an addict.
Right.
Like, nobody does that, dude. Like, I feel like when we approach, or anything, you know, any kind of, like, societal flaw that we choose to see, air quotes, you know, like, nobody chooses to wake up and be, like, a terrible human being, you know what I mean? Like, or to be these things that, like, we've all kind of, like, pushed onto them, and like, in any sort of stigma, mental health.
Right.
Addiction.
If you give it a label, then you give it an association, like, oh, that type of person. If they're an alcoholic, then they're this type of person.
Right.
What, and on that note of what you said about, we don't know, like, they could have gone through worse or not as much as you or whatever. That was one of the things that deterred me from the rooms when I realized I hadn't gone in a while, and I should probably go back. And then I had this, like, and it's recurring, and so I need to nip it in the bud and just, you know, eventually eliminate it. But I always feel like my situation isn't as bad as others in the room, and so it's not as important that I make it to the meeting. And even my daughter the other day was like, when was the last meeting you went to? And I was like, well, it was in July, but, you know, you're right, it's almost September, you know. I need to get back in there. But I often feel like they look at me like, you know, she's had it so easy, you know, and so that has kept me out. I'm guilty of that, but I still go when I can, and love going and encourage going.
That's a kind of strange but interesting concept that I can kind of relate to. It's almost, you think, my problems aren't as bad, so I don't really need the attention. Like, I don't really need help, because those people, they need help. Like, they're struggling a lot. But me, I don't want people to waste the resources on me, you know? But I think that's almost a cop-out, though. It is.
You're like, I think in ways, dude, it's one of those things that, like, because I do similar things, obviously, and I think a lot of people that with struggles do this.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the people, what I always relate it back to is, like, because me and Eric talk about this quite often, and I talk about this in, like, every podcast ever, because it's just so relative to, I mean, not only to my life, but I feel like a lot of people's lives, you know, like, you attack the problem, right? The problem, which is, like, your drinking or your use. And then you come to realize, dude, that, like, there's some things underneath that are also the problem. You know what I mean? Like, this didn't help the problem, like, the big problem, right? But it definitely wasn't, like, the foundational things. And I think a lot of people, like, that turn to substances have this foundational problem of, like, a lack of self-worth. lack of self-esteem sometimes. You know what I mean? Where like you don't. Maybe this is another projection, but like you don't feel like, oh, I'm not as bad as like you saying to yourself, really in a way that like I don't deserve this help.
Yeah.
And like I don't deserve to go to these meetings and like be a part of this because like I don't need it. When really you just don't really feel like you're worth it. To really go and get this help, or like really to make you're justifying in an opposite way of what you really do, like in ways want and need. You know what I mean? Like you're just as worthy and just as needing and this help because it is all relative and it is out there for everybody. It's like you don't have to be a 30-year abuser of heroin to go to an NA meeting. You don't have to have been drinking and ruining all of your relationships to go to an AA meeting.
Right.
Like you're just as valuable and worthy of that help and those resources as anybody else in this community.
And what is really sad is I know that there are so many people who have considered going, but they feel the same way I felt, which is terrified of actually going.
Right.
And I kind of did it to appease my family, to be honest. Because, here's my ism, like, you got this, girl. You got it. You don't need to go to those meetings. But it's like, well, I should do what they're saying I should do. So I went, and then I went for, like I said, almost every day for quite a while. And I began to love it so, so much. And so in recent weeks, I've encountered, just daily stuff where I'm like, gosh, I bet they would know what to do. Like, I need to share this. I need to bounce this off other people in the rooms. And I have some people who I've talked to, but it's all in like expressing yourself in the meeting, people, giving their 2 cents on it, always encouraging. And then afterward, you visiting with the other people, and they always have, it's just nice to know that they're not judging you and there's another perspective to have. And that's what I want, is whenever I'm dealing with something, I just need a fresh perspective because I'm all about me. I'm all about me all the time. So now that I know what the meetings offer, I'm like, when you're ready, because I don't push anybody, but I'm like, when you're ready, I'll go with you because I know what they offer and what they've done for me.
It's always nice to have accountability buddy.
Accountability buddy. Yeah.
And community, just in general, a group of people. Like I personally do this, and I'm sure pretty much everyone does it, but just getting stuck inside your own head, your own thoughts. You don't have outside perspective, so things that are pretty obvious, you just totally miss because you're just trapped in here in your head, all what you can see. But then someone else might just be like, all that takes is for them to notice something that you just had no idea about because they're not you. Like, that's it. And to have, like we said, a non-judgmental community of people who basically just want to help you, whatever that means. Like Aaron was saying, it doesn't have to be 30 years of addiction or whatever. It can be just something that you struggle with, but that's what they want to do. I mean, I'm sure the people at those meetings would rather have you come in, like, having tried heroin maybe for the first time or whatever, and be like, this isn't what I want. And they can save you all the years of pain that they've gone through.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they want you as soon as possible. Like, it's not, your burden's not good enough. They don't want you to have to carry that. They've been down that road, and I'm sure they want what's best.
I'm not going to quote him perfectly, but there's a guy in the rooms who, he's said this a few times, and it's always stuck with me, and of course it's all distorted, it'll be all distorted coming out, but in my mind it makes sense. And he says, there's not enough time in my life to make all the mistakes that we've all made. So it's like, let me spare you. Here's my mistakes that I've made. Everyone's got their, just put them all out there, and you can be like, I'm going to learn from all these people's mistakes, so I don't have to, lose the things and have to deal with those things. So, yeah, when you talk about perspective, you go in there and you're like, holy, that's what can really happen.
Yeah.
And, I thought that my bottom, when I got off the elevator, wasn't near some of those things, but I was certainly headed there.
Right.
Yeah.
If I was alive to experience it.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
exactly. Yeah. So what is your recovery like today, or even since that fateful 4th of July? What is you said you went to a lot of meetings, but what has been really driving you, or struggled with? What you've done well, or you feel like has helped out?
So, My daughter definitely. I am very open about. I'm an open book about my sobriety and my struggles and my mistakes. Ugh. I mean, it's really hard to not talk about the darkest parts. There are so many more, but I'm just very open with her about how happy I am not drinking, and I make sure to tell her how great she's doing in this, and I just make sure I'm there for her. So really, I'm just like stepping up my mom role because honestly, I'm lucky to have her. Because I had driven after drinking countless times, and not usually with her, but sometimes, like if we just swing by the brewery, you know, and it's not looked at as a terrible thing, but when you're as bad as me, it is a terrible thing, because you know, it doesn't stop there. But so I just am doing a lot of spiritual growth and just trying to just be the best mom while, you know, I've got the I got sober just in time for middle school.
Oh,
Nice.
good.
So
This is a close one, but you got it.
Yeah. So we're getting into that, and so that's fun, but it's just such a blessing that I have a clear head. I tell my mom all the time, I'm like, I am so glad I'm sober for this situation, because I just imagine how I'd be handling it. And I really do. I'm kind of a masochist like this. I'll be like, if I was drinking, it would have gone like this, this, and this. And it is a train wreck. And that's exactly how it would go. But I need that scare to keep me over here, you know?
Yeah.
So... yeah. Other than that, I went to the Jamboree. They have the Jamboree every year. When I went last year, I was 8 days sober. So I was terrified. And they do this like sobriety countdown where they say, have you been sober this many years? And they add up all the years and days and months of all the people in the room. And I think this year it was like 1,600. Anyway, I'm going to butcher it, but it was so many years
Wow,
of
that's
sobriety. And so from day one, 24 hours to like 50 years, every day that those people have been sober is a huge accomplishment. So it always just blows my mind, always, this year and last year. But when I went this year, I was a year sober. So I was just like, man, I cannot believe it. I cannot believe I made it a year. And, but now it's like, here you were at month one, hoping to get to a year. And now you're at a year. Now what are you going to do, right? So when I was there, like the first few meetings, I was like, I cannot wait until I have that time. And I can't wait because I know there's like huge opportunities coming my way. And so now that I'm a year and some change, I'm like, I'm so excited for the opportunities this year brings. And here we are, right? So the opportunity to share my story and encourage those around me. I have been really vocal about it on my Facebook and Instagram. And I've had some people reach out to me that you would never imagine, because they live seemingly normal lives and have normal families, and they're affected by it too. So I'm like super glad that that I can be, you know, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to call myself an inspiration. It sounds a little geeky, but
I think it's valid.
Yeah.
For other people. I'm sure you've been inspired by some people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I don't think that's
So-
such a well-deserved title.
It's hard. A lot of my sobriety is, my journey is, you know, being real about the dark parts. It's not fun for anyone.
Yeah.
So if you could go back and tell yourself, like, I guess in kind of the the part where you're really in it, if there was something that you think would help, what would you say?
Not to be distracted, dude. This is a weird question because every time I hear this question, dude, I always think to myself, because just like the person I am, I'm like, honestly, man, it wouldn't have mattered because I could have came back, reincarnated, and told myself, like, hey, man, this isn't sustainable. And I'd be like, dude, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about, nerd.
I'd say this to me, and I'd be like, I know. I know it's not
I
sustainable.
know.
Also, see you.
Yeah.
I know. And bye.
Yeah.
God, if it was at all possible, I would play myself a hyperlapse of that moment to 35 and show that myself how it plays out. Because there's everything that I would do differently. And
It's interesting. You've kind of said what's helped you now is what we've heard in recovery called playing the tape forward.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, if I do this, this is what's going to happen. So I'm not going to do that. So do you think if you could go back and you realize how big the consequences got later on down the road, do you think that would have stopped you?
yes.
Oh, so you really didn't know. You really were just
No.
like, this is going to be fine. And then eventually it hit you like, this is not fine at all. I'm going to go to the hospital more or less.
Yeah, well, and it blaming everyone but myself the whole time except for at the very end. And that's why they say the first step is admitting you have a problem. I denied, I blamed, I ostracized, I burned bridges. And it still led me down the path of destruction. It's like, okay, well, I'm not going to go down that path because it's not working out for me, so I'm going to go down this path. It was all negative, and it was all destructive. So
There's no good path in the whole forest.
there is no.
Yeah.
So but at that point, when I got fired, I was like, I hung up the phone because he called me and told me that HR said that or whatever. And, I mean, I was devastated, like I said, but I was like, wow, I really have to flip the script right now. I need to completely change my life. And what a feeling to know that, all right, that sucked, but what a feeling to know that it's a new day, it's a new slate, it's a new direction. It can't be any worse than what it's been.
Yeah.
So I was excited. I was excited about it. And that moment, I knew that, because I told you about that piece that I was lugging around like, I can never drink again. Even though they say, oh, it's just one day at a time. You just don't have to drink today. And I do practice that all the time because that still creeps into my, but I was like, I really don't have to drink today. And look at how great my day was. Tomorrow I don't, I'm going to go to bed and then I won't have to drink tomorrow either. And anytime I deal with a struggle, because it's been over a year, I've had a few struggles, a few instances where I've been just like not in control of what things that transpire in life. And I've said, it's nothing I have to drink over. And I would tell my mom, I'm just so glad I'm sober so I can deal with it like a normie and move forward. Not in that direction.
Not this big detour of ignore it, delay, eventually get around to it. But
yeah, so if you think of like a spectrum, here's one side, here's the other. So you're in the destructive zone. When I got the call, it was like, oh, right? You have to completely go the other way. And all the things that were destroying your life just can't exist anymore. So it's only going to get better.
And it's so crazy how possible that is to just change on a dime when you really know that that's not what you wanted. It sounded like your values at that moment really shifted. Like,
yes.
This isn't what I want.
I realized how close I was to losing the things that were so near and dear to me, my family, my daughter, my life. So realizing those things could be taken from me, and I'm lucky that they weren't, that was enough. But I mean, it's like, what's enough? What's enough to make you scared enough? You just have to know you're not invincible. I mean, when I fell and broke my head open and had my seizures, I knew that it was dangerous. It could happen when I was driving. And, oh yeah, okay, so like, when you're kind of in denial, when you know you want to quit, but you're like, but I've just been drinking for so long, or I've been, doing drugs for so long. I can't stop now. Come on, like.
Mama didn't raise no quitter.
Right? Yeah. Oh God, get cool guy. Right. So, you're already setting yourself up for failure because it's already like been chosen. You've chosen your fate because. You are a smoker or you are, an alcoholic, so why stop now? But once you say, I'm the kind of person who is in control of my life, then you're like, all right, so the ties are cut from that whole association with whatever it is that you do or did. And you're like, okay, I may have drank for the last 20 years, but I'm the type of person who has control over what I do in this moment or this day. So then what will be, will be. You have the choice.
Yeah.
But I'll be damned if I'm going to let my addiction win, right?
Right.
So I have the control. So I choose not to drink.
That's interesting. It's like rebelling against your addiction.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to let this control me. Just like, I like that. That's a good way to look at it.
Refined rebelliousness.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is what it is, isn't it?
Sounds like some kind of band or something.
Right.
Maybe some
Dude,
trademark.
Have you ever seen Parks and Rec?
Yes, of course.
Dude, when Andy's always coming up with those band names, she's like, oh, there's a part where one of the ladies is like trying on these suits, suits of the other lady, and she's like, because this girl, one character never wears suits, she's like, oh, there's a concert ticket to Fleetwood Mac in here, and like now I have to wear Leslie's Fleetwood Mac sex pants, and Andy's like, Fleetwood Mac sex pants, new band name, called it.
Called it.
And he's sitting there, he's like, it's Chris Pratt, so
Yeah.
stroking his beard, he goes, maybe just Fleetwood Mac. He's always coming up with these weird band names. Dude, their band names like Mouse Rat. Like, there's a whole scene where they're going through all his band names.
That's such a good one.
Hilarious.
I love it. Worth it.
Right.
Refined rebellion.
Yeah, and I guess, I am a rebel. I'm not like a bad girl, but don't tell me what I can and can't do, because I will do the opposite. If I say, choose a restaurant, and you say this one, or you say option A, I'm going to be like, okay, B it is. Like, ugh, that's just how I am. And it's like, please help me by telling me which one we're not going to.
Yeah.
Tell me which one you want to go to so we go to the other one. Because all of a sudden that one sounds so much better to me.
That's awesome. Well, this has been really great talking with you about this and kind of going through your life and the different phases. But it sounds like you have the control that you want now. That you have a life that you believe is worth living and worth not drinking today.
Absolutely.
Basically.
Yeah.
That's so cool to hear stories like yours where
Thank you.
you found a way and here you are today and you like where you're at. Maybe it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
Not all good all the time.
No, but it's
Maybe not even half the time.
It's
But
a journey that I can see and feel and smell and remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
So-
It's very uniquely your own.
That's right. Well, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, thank you so much, Caitie, for joining us today. This was really fun. For anybody else out there that is at that point, where they're kind of ready to get some help, there's plenty of resources in our community, and Care Transitions is obviously a great point to start. There's people out in the community that really want to see you succeed and want to see you living your genuine best life, like that real best version of yourself.
Yes.
So you can always just go to the hospital, pop in, ask to see Dale or somebody from Care Transitions. They'll get you set up there. We're here at the Serenity Intake office on 245 North Binkley Street. You can always come in here and ask for some help if you need or want. Thank you so much for listening. This is you and I for the Kenai.